Okay, now recording started. I'm starting the session. Okay. Yeah, what? So today, a very good afternoon to all of you in this first session. After induction, I know about 14-15 students who recently I received that updated data a few days back only, and after getting that data, I immediately shared sent welcome address, welcome mail to all the learners. So the learners, we have 14 or 15, 14 new members which was not present on the first induction session. So let us welcome them also here. Keeping all this in mind, because in my mind, we know we have already conducted the induction session, we have explained some of that induction, but a few of them are new and they may not have idea about this teaching learning process also. So looking in this mind, I have put this session in special session a brief overview. Yeah, we're going to look into what exactly how sustainability science, postgraduate diploma in sustainability science was established, and what we are going to learn in a brief way. So when we talk about sustainability and sustainable development, and I will assume that most of you, when we look into what you are discussing in our WhatsApp group, in our discussion forum, that most of you are from this, most of you already have or expertise in one or other field. And I assume that you have in brief concept about sustainable development and about sustainability. And as we know that when we talk about sustainable development, sustainability in general, and then when this debate was started in 1980s, when Brundtland Commission report was that published, and then that time we know that when we talk about sustainable development, it is about achieving sustainability and finding out an approach. And then when we are trying to achieve an objective, and then finding an approach. And very much important when we talk about sustainable development and sustainability is that how to give awareness to the people, how to reach to the people. Because when we talk about technicality, then it is run around only to few groups of people who are well educated. When we talk about sustainability of the planet, when we talk about achieving sustainable development, it is about mass participation in one side, on the other hand, participation by masses, right? So when the sustainable development debate was started in 1980s onward, in a big way across the globe, then the question of education for sustainable development that started, and that's why in 1992 when we have Rio Conference, World Conference on Environment and Development, and that in that time the concept of this education for sustainable development was streamlined. And if we look into one of the important documents which was published, which was the output of the Rio Conference, in that is Agenda 21, in its specific sector, that is sector statistics, that talks about education for sustainable development, right? And the work to perform and to reach, to penetrate to Italy, the corner of the world, was given to United Nations, UNESCO, right? So in that way, then UNESCO started to prepare a report how to achieve it, how to do it, how to define education for sustainable development. Because when we talk about sustainable development, the mindset with us is that sustainable is development, education is education for environment or environment education. In fact, it is not so. So when you see that report, Education for a Sustainable Future of UNESCO, you will find out that it reflected upon that necessity of a reorientation of education in all sectors. Because when we talk about education for sustainable development, it is not asking about a new streamline and that new ways of teaching. It is asking about how to streamline it, right? So we need to reorient the existing structure, existing that methodology or existing syllabus in such a way that it has to blend it with the approach of what we want to teach to the learners, what we want to reach to the people about sustainability and its different tenets, right? So that is the principle of ESD was stressed in that report. In fact, that when we're talking about, as I told you, and most of you know, that when you talk about achieving a sustainability and for a sustainable planet, it needs participation by masses or mass participation, mass awareness. And to give awareness about education for sustainable development, United Nations, the launched UN decade on education for sustainable development from 2005 to 2014. Second step to have a mass awareness about education for sustainable development, right? Then when we talk about education for sustainable development, then how to do it? What is exactly the concept? That is very important. When we talk about education for sustainable development, the concept is about all educational levels. Maybe it started from your kindergarten to primary education, secondary education, because that child, if you know, because when we are going to, it is not possible to teach only a generation. We need to teach different generation in a year or in different year. So that's why it has to focus about it has to teach or it has to aware to all generation. So until lifelong learning, maybe tertiary education also, secondary education, until lifelong learning, like what Indira Gandhi National Open University is giving lifelong learning to the different section of the society across India in particular and across the world. And when we talk about what has to taught and what has not, what has to be understand in that, the way the approach has to be, that needs to have a different learning objective. It should have a content focus and pedagogical approach. And as I mentioned you that our mindset is that when you talk about education for sustainable development, with our assumption, our thinking is that it is about environment education. In fact, it is not, though it is interlinked. Linkages between environment education and education for sustainable development. But if you really look into what is the technicality, what is the objective behind this education for sustainable development, it is beyond environment education. So if you look into what exactly we have to achieve, what we have to do in education for sustainable development is to promote and improve quality of a lifelong education that is directed to the acquisition of your knowledge, skills, and values that is necessary for all citizens to improve their quality of life, right? Then, as I told you, it is not about developing a new curriculum, or it is not about developing a new methodology. It is about reorientation of curricula and rethinking. For example, we cannot say that a student which is learning or studying physics cannot say that you forget about physics and this or study this, learn this. No. So we have to reorient, rethink, reform the way they are educating to blend it with education for sustainability principle. Then, as you know, when we are talking about sustainable development, that we need to have a mass awareness. That is one of the objective. Then and another, we need to train a group of and workforces so that they will become a trainers. They will reach and penetrate to different part of the world to teach about sustainable development, to give awareness about that, and to give training to different people, even to show to the people that what has to do and how to continue with the way we are trying to find out or trying to achieve sustainable development in our society. So if you look into technical definition given by UNESCO in 2011, education for sustainable development is a learning process based on the ideals and the principles that underlie sustainability and is concerned with all levels and types of learning to provide quality education. You should understand this particular word, quality education. It is not quality education, right? Because when we teach about education for sustainable development, we have to look about the quality of education and foster sustainable human development and learning to know, learning to be, learning to live together, learning to do, and learning to transform oneself in society. If you look into this definition, you will be able to understand that it is about co-learning, learning by doing, co-evolution of knowledge, right? So it is about education for sustainable development. Okay. Then if you look into some of the this approach, which is proposed by different authors, one of those authors define out two distinct approaches. One is empowerment perspective, others is behavior modification perspective. Because when we talk about education for sustainable development, if you simply look into that, one is you have to teach some certain group of people who have highly educated or that have a basic education background. Other is there may be the general public, we can say general public, right? So on the other hand, some has to understand the technicality, a process, and so on about achieving sustainable development, about sustainability. In other way, then some may need to change their behavioral lifestyle, because when we talk about sustainable development, it is not only about technology, it is also about our responsibility, right? So if you look here, you will find out when we say that empowerment perspective, it is about the goal is about to enable the learner to become an independent critical thinker. Here comes innovation. When you look into sustainable development, we need to innovate. When you have a critical thinker capability, and we teach or we train group of people, group of young people, group of citizens, how to orient yourself as a critical thinker, then that will, solve half of the problem what we are facing in achieving sustainable development. Then other modification perspective, behavior modification perspective is its goal is altering the learner's habit in line with more or less prescribed ideals, and the criteria for success is, that's also differ from depending from one to other. When we talk about that alter learners habits means, the way we are having, we are following the lifestyle we're trying to adopt, like in most of the underdeveloped country or developing country, we are trying to adopt the lifestyle what exists here in Western country, developed country. So in developed country also, they need to be aware, realize what has done by their forefather that have direct impact to the degradation of the world, the production capacity or biocapacity of the planet Earth. So in that way, we need to change our behavior that have direct impact to the environment, direct impact to the society. So that is exactly what it exactly talks about. So here, I want to more focus on tertiary education, because we are providing education in higher tertiary level. When we talk about the education for sustainable development, one is, I told you that I'm sure most of you must have agreed that when we talk about education for sustainable development, when its principle says it is co-learning, learning by doing. But what about some of this higher education? which we are not practicing it, if we are not doing it, right? So how to teach them? That is also a big question. With that, our idea is that when we implement something, then we say that implementation is happening. So sustainable education for sustainable development is going on. That is not a question. It is not when we say that it's implemented. So when you are providing in tertiary education, especially when you are providing or practicing in some of the practice which is done by those actively involved group of people or group of institutions, that needs to be carried on, or that principal theoretical knowledge, principal can be studied at the different institution. So implementation is not a full stop of your the sustainable education for sustainable development, right? So we need to be reoriented again and again. We have to be updated our knowledge. For example, here in postgraduate diploma in sustainability science also, why we are continuously doing that academic counseling every week. If you look into BIAS portal, you will find out that we are regularly conducting at least 2 classes in a week. The reason behind that is that we know that we are providing you self-learning material that is enough for you. But when it comes into sustainability, when it comes into education for sustainable development, it's about co-learning, and it's about updating your knowledge. It is about your involvement in wherever possible. And here, that is the question comes that how to keep education for sustainable development at tertiary level. In tertiary level, you can look into 2 important components. One is, we mentioned that one is about practicing. Few institutions, they practice it, and they make it as a case study and trying to implement to the field and promote those kind of technology, those kind of the process to the society, right? And some groups, they are taking part in that and giving awareness to the other people. So that is we're talking about, that is need for sustainability science. So what is sustainability science? The details we'll have in another session, but if you look into, I'm sure you must have looked into also the materials. Sustainability science is a very complex and dynamic. It's a very new discipline that study about the interaction between nature and society. Where if you look into the interaction between nature and society, as you know, it is highly complex. The way we interact in 100 years back with the nature is not same what we are doing today. And what we are going today, even it will not be same in another 1 year, after 1 year, right? So it shows that it's a very highly interactive, complex and highly dynamic. So in this dynamic process needs to be mapped or transformed, and we need to look that dynamic process needs to be in a sustainable way. So that's we're trying to find out that approach, how to map this dynamic process. We know that the interaction between nature and society is a natural phenomenon. Because of that interaction only in this process, we degrade that, we ruin our, we degraded our environment, we degraded our natural resources, the resource conservation is there. But it is the right time, and it is very late. We have to think about how to balance it. So that's what exactly sustainable science is. The principle of sustainable science then it is talking about. So if we properly implemented sustainable science under the domain of education for sustainable development, we assure that in one day or other, or achieving sustainable development will be very easy, right? So here I would like to show how sustainability science was evolved during the last 50 years. If you have a quick look into that, as I told you that in fact it started the reality. We are able to see the real process up to that's 1992's UNCED conference. But in fact, if you look into roots, especially after post-industrialization, then you will find out after World War, especially after World War II, and that in 1972, Club of Rome published its report. Read. Then we have after that 1972 we have the Stockholm Conference, a number of we'll discuss later on. A number of that internationally for publication reports are there. Limit to growth of this particular Club of Rome. It was started before that also. If you look into that, how Raquel Carson, what she wrote about that particular book. Then followed by 1970 Stockholm, and so on, different authors that did in, and United Nations that environment program UNEP was constituted, and its report was there, and so on. So in 1984, 87, during 1980s, a number of international organizations, especially in developed countries, with the support of developed countries, a number of studies, scientific studies was conducted that look into different that issues on environment degradation more, especially in climate change and so on. And as we know, the 1990s Stockholm Conference, before that IPCC, and so on. In that way, we have seen that especially 1990s, up to 1990s, 1993, 95, then when UNESCO was given the responsibility for education for sustainable development, then from that onward, then SAP of sustainability science started to come off. Okay, so today, in today's context, if you look into, if you Google it out in the word sustainability science, you will find out different courses and programs across the globe that have different degree related to sustainable science, and exactly different universities established as a full-time discipline, as an academic discipline in different pioneer and different university across the world. In India, in fact, IGNOU is the only university that offers this program. So looking into the progress, different authors look into, they have reviewed, especially some of the scientists and a group of people from Benares University. They review paper. And if you look at that, I will share that paper. You will get it from them also. As I know, it review in a very interesting review paper. Then when they review, they find that the principle of sustainability science is widely acknowledged as a tool for attaining global sustainability, and it has become core philosophy of international and national development agenda. You will find out it very easily that when different United Nations organizations, different international organizations, even different nations, when they are trying to implement, when they are implementing, or they are developing, or they are framing new policies, is it looks from the lens of sustainability, right? So that shows that the doctrine of sustainability science is widely acknowledged. And if, in fact, we look into sustainable development goal number 4, it talks about quality education, right? So without education, you cannot achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals as diseased by 2030. So in that way, and the way it is progressing across the world, now it has become, this particular discipline is very popular across the world. In India, in fact, the two others, what I mentioned from what I told, this group of academic from Banaras Hindu Universities, Priyadarshini and Avilas, when they reviewed that paper and they suggested two models in India to implement sustainable science education. One is infusion model, where you can focus on to make sustainable science an independent discipline. Another is diffusion model. Whatever tenets and the principle of sustainable science can be integrated in the existing courses. For example, if you look into some of the existing courses like Tertiary University, they have courses related to energy and sustainability. In some courses, like Azim Premji University is also doing some courses. In that way, different university have different courses, and they integrate in that way. They integrate the principle of sustainability with the existing curriculum. Right. So after that review, they concluded that effective utilization of this two model will help in developing or nurturing a group of leaders as a future leaders or ambassador of sustainability. In that way, Indira Gandhi National Open University established that introduced, they developed this postgraduate diploma in sustainability science in the year 2010 under the guidance of Professor M.S. Swaminathan. In fact, it was happened during UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development, and it was offered through online in that time. Different program was awareness program was first offered in that time, and the overall objective of this program is to provide opportunity to the learners to deepen their knowledge and understanding about sustainable development and the principle of sustainability science, and also to expand capacities to learners on various theoretical and practical aspects of sustainable development, and then develop professional knowledge and skills in formulation, implementation, monitoring, evaluation of sustainable development projects and programs. And as we have 7 theory course that's on sustainability science, ecosystem, natural resources, socio-cultural system, ecological economics, institution governance and policies, studies and models for sustainability, challenges of sustainability. Here we will find out, we started with basic of sustainability science. Right. When we talk about the relation with sustainability, how that imbalances happen in the interaction between nature and society, right? The nature has given us the resources, right? So we need to understand ecosystem and natural resources. That is the group 2, right? Course 2. Then whatever the interaction and the resources we are getting from the nature is because of our socio-cultural system. We have 3rd course on socio-cultural system. The medium, if you look into the medium between this nature and society, is this economics, right? Flow of economic is the medium, right? So we have ecological economics is also a basic foundation course. Then when you look into how this ecosystem and that ecosystem, that environment and society interact through the medium ecological economics, that needs to be maintained in a proper way. In what way? That's true. Proper institution, governance, and policies, right? So these are the basic foundation. And we know that especially since the last 50, 70 years across the world, we are aggressively looking towards achieving sustainable development for all. Before that, the initiative of sustainability and sustainable development, the issues were in different places, in the piecemeal, in different way, right? Now, we know that if you take an example in India, we have different programs. policies implemented at different level, like Sukna Lake model, number of watershed model, right, successfully, but it is not well aware, and some of things we are not understanding that from the lens of sustainability. So we have to learn those lessons. We have to implement those things wherever applicable. And as a student of sustainability science, we need to look the technicality behind the success of those models. And we need to find out new strategies which will be followed in this new world. So that's why we have that studies and models for sustainability in course 16. Then comes, during the last 70 years, especially, we have seen a number of challenges when we're talking about implementation. Because when we learn about the successful models, we know that different models was not success. We implemented hundreds and thousands of project policies program. Only selected few are effectively implement, and they are highly success. And what are those challenges? That was the barriers, hurdles to those unsuccessful models. That needs to be understood. And today also, when we talk about sustainable development, what are the challenges? So that's why we have 17 challenges to sustainable development as a course 7. Then when we learn something theoretical, principle, concept, some of the case study, we need to assess ourselves whether I will be able to communicate what I learned to the other stakeholders, to my peer students, to my teacher, to my parents, and as a profession, whether the sustainability science principle, whatever I learned from this course, whether I will be able to understand or whether I will be able to use those principles to develop a project. And if you are able to develop a project, means you have that point when you talk about education for sustainable development, when you talk about one of the strategies that talks about, you need to have a critical thinking ability that needs to be learned after the end of this course. So that's why we have a project, so that you will be able to first is assess yourself, your understanding about the issues of sustainability, the theory you learn out of this. Then let us have a quick look into what we are going to learn in the course Sustainability Science. The major objective of this course 1, in our IGNOU pedagogy, distance education pedagogy, that's our paper is in convention system, we say paper. Here it is course, and chapters are block, and unit is unit, right? So here, this course, in this course, we'll try to understand growth and genesis of sustainability sciences in emerging discipline, to explain the integrated holistic sustainable development in dashes by giving Indian examples. Right? When we talk about sustainable development, people mindset, as I told you, that we think that sustainable development is about environmental. It's about environment quality. It's about stopping only environmental degradation. No, we need to understand those issues in an integrated way, holistic way. We have to understand what I told you in brief about the important pillars of sustainable development: your natural pillars, social pillars, economic pillars, institutional pillars. These pillars is not functioning well, then if one pillar is weak, it has impact to others, right? Then when you talk about achieving sustainability, if you look into any of the religions, their writing, you will see everything is behind ethical value. So we need to understand what are the ethical values, because when we talk about environment degradation, it is about, we forget, the human civilization forget about ethics of other organisms, about living organisms, about non-living components. So ethical values need to be understood. Then in fact, if we look into India's tradition, we need to go back in the sense, what I'm saying is, we need to relook into our age-old ethics on natural environment, right? How we used to do. So it has 4 blocks. The first block, it is on introduction to sustainable development, and the second block on sustainability science. Here, introduction to sustainable development, as I told you, we have to understand what sustainable development is, its initiatives, how concept was started, what are its goals and dimension, and what are the challenges to sustainable development, and what pathways needs to be followed. Then block 2 will be on after having an understanding about sustainable development from different way. Now it is, pathways to sustainable development is the principle of sustainability science. So when we are trying to understand this principle of sustainability science, is first and foremost things is we need to understand about the ecological foundation of basic human needs. As we know that what is happening across the world, the degradation, environment pollution, and then threats to planet Earth is because of human greeds. Then we'll look into concept of sustainability science and how to understand what are the basic indicators of sustainability, right? Then block 3 will talk about approaches to sustainable development. When we talk about approaches to sustainable development, you need to understand the first, resources, the natural resources. When we're talking about the approaches is extraction of natural resources. In what way, how to extract efficiently, effectively. So here, instead of using extraction, what we have to do, we have to understand the utilization pattern and how nature needs to be exist, means ecology in a landscape way, landscape ecology. And if you look into the success stories, most success story, watershed management is one of those component sector that effectively implement and successful in a very big way. So when we talk about those approaches without participation in policy and planning by different stakeholders, it will not be possible. So those methods, that approach will be learned in that block 3. And this block 4 talks about how to develop human resource development, how to aware ourselves. That's here it talks about that behavioral approach, right? How to change our behavior for an eco-friendly lifestyle, how education awareness should use as a tool to achieve sustainable development, and the way towards green technology. Then close to will talk on this ecosystem natural resources. There we are going to talk about the basic foundation of ecosystem and natural resources. I will not explain so much. These are some of the, here what I want to say is that you may be from different background, some may be from ecological background, others may be from sociology and so on. Here what we are going to learn is the unit is structured in such a way and it is written in such a way that it will be keeping the writers keeping in their mind that the units will be studied or read by, learned by people from different disciplines. So don't confuse, or what I can say, those from other background may feel that, okay, it will be very difficult for us. Don't think in that way. We need to understand that ecosystem and its different component, natural resources from an interdisciplinary perspective is what we build up here. And when we talk about different resources, especially in water, what we're thinking is we used to talk on pollution perspective. Here the point is not only quality is important, it's also important quantity available, right? So the quality and quantitative perspective of different resources will also be there, right? Then course 3 is on socio-cultural system. As I told you that culture, society play an important role in maintaining the harmonious relation and carrying forward the ethical values. And the function culture, the function of that culture in society is very much important. So we have to understand those functions of culture and society in this course, how it was evolved. So in the same way, it has 4 blocks: culture, society, environment, first block. These are some of the units. Then how society has changed in terms of that, it looks from the perspective, not the sociological perspectives, on the perspective of resource and society relation, right? Then indigenous knowledge system from the perspective of how resources was maintained through indigenous knowledge system, what we need to do in this modern world. Then block 4 on development pathways, and this in this particular area, we have to understand when we talk about sustainability, basic of human resources, human rights, then that the principle equity and equality, and many more. So that we are going to study here. Then, as I told you, the medium of the interaction between nature and society is through economics. We need to understand the economic values of ecology resources. It is not about, when we talk about the economic value, what we are getting from the last few centuries about the monetary value of that. Means we can see quantitative value. We forget the qualitative value or indirect value given by natural resources or natural resource system that needs to be understood from economic value. That's called ecological economics. Here also, don't be worried. Here we're going to learn about the concept of ecological economics. We are not going to focus more on technicality of ecological economics, right? So in this course, we'll have 4 blocks. First block, we'll try to understand the economic ecology, economic environment, and sustainability. That ecology economy interaction will be studied. Then, as I told you, resource and economics needs to be understood, direct indirect values. Then that will bring what we have seen in India. What is the issues related to here, environment issues in India? That doesn't mean that we are going to talk about pollution problems. Very simple. It is here we are going to talk about when there is environment degradation, when there is environment issues in India, what are its economic value? How to understand that from point of economic value, right? That has to be looked into that. Then at last, we have to understand valuation pricing of natural resources, right? Then 15 is about institution governance and policies. That will talk on different concept of the concept of institution governance, different policy tools exist, and many more discussion will be on different tools, right? Then, as I told, the strategies model for sustainability. They also have 4 blocks. One is strategies for sustainability. When we talk about strategies for sustainable development, sustainable development means improving the livelihood. When we talk about improving the livelihood, it is all about infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, then it should we you should understand from the holistic approach that we are going to study from this course. And then and India being in that agriculture based country, we need to understand what are the consequences of green revolution and what kind of revolution we require, what how to improve production, and how to make on farm off farm livelihood improvement in a sustainable way, and how to link that market and from farmers to market in equitable way. Then block 4, we are going to look into some of the models, looking into India's geographical landform. We have taken 3 important geographical regions. One is that what kind of successful model is already implemented by Japan Institute of Himalayan Environment and Development and Himalayan region. Then another is then coastal areas in sustainable integrated farming system, implemented as a success story implemented by MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, and cultural landscape-based sustainable development model in northeastern India that is implemented by one the organization NAPED in Nagaland. So these are some of the few case studies. And course 17, as I told you, this is about challenges. What challenges is the first challenge is climate change. As a student of sustainable science, we need to understand some basic about science of climate change. What are the impacts? And the impacts can be looked into from different dimensions, right? And if we know that what are the basic adaptation and mitigation strategies, then other more issues are there, like overpopulation, energy crisis, urbanization, and so on. And as a student of sustainability science and as an expert in sustainability, one most important issues is when we talk about challenges to sustainability, we sometimes neglected that at individual or very micro level. That's about health, nutrition, balance. Because when we talk about sustainable development challenges, we're talking about macro level. So the need of the hour is when we are trying to find out a way towards achieving sustainability is that improving livelihood. When we talk about improving livelihood, then you need to look at the micro level. Then some of the threats, we do not include many more threats are there to sustainable development, but here we are going to look into some of the major threats like land degradation, desertification, disaster, biopiracy, etc. As I told you, MSDP 018 is about project. If we're able to utilize or that knowledge what we learn in the 7 theory courses, then if you are able to use the principles, tenets, lesson learned from that in the formal project, then you will be able to assess yourself, okay, this much I have gained knowledge in that. So the objective of this project work is to enhance analytical capability and leadership skill. Teaching and learning process, I'm very first way, I'm in a very fast, I'm taking this. One is study center. Don't confuse with the study center. Our study center is our IGNOU, right? SOITS IGNOU, right? Induction we have already done. Study material, soft copy, hard copy. If you opted for hard copy, don't worry, you will get it. Some must have already got it. And soft copy, you are getting it from PIAS portal, and we are having regular online counseling session. We have interactive video counseling session, Gyan session, Swam Prabhat channel, and so on. Right. Assessment method. Here, your continuous assessment is 30% means assignment. The weightage 30% is from assignment. Term and examination 70%. Then project report you have to complete at the end. Project report 75%, paper 25%. Right. Assignment when it comes into assignment, you can download assignment from our page, BIAS portal. Then you submit it. Now we are accepting through email, scan, handwritten scan copies. And the instruction is over there. I will show the instruction, right? Already there in BIAS portal. Examination. It is not a PGTSS, is not a semester based. It is a annual based. So you are eligible to give examination or to appear examination after completion of 1 year. So since you are January session, then you are eligible to give examination or appear examination December in this year, right? And the flexibility is 3 years. You can complete within 3 years from from your batch. Examination centers, you can give examination anywhere in India from the listed centers provided by the university in the time of online examination form submission. And examination is for theory, as I told you. Then project. First, this also we have already explained the procedure in our BIAS portal. You can get there. You have to submit a proposal first to us. It's also we are accepting through email. Proposal has to submit to us, right? Then full report has to be submitted directly to the student evaluation division. As of now, university following or accepting in a centralized portal, right? And we conduct Viva online. And this is about our PGDSS, IGNOU PGDSS BIAS portal. You'll find here, everything is here, you see here. Save learning material, you download from here. Work counseling related, here, project work, assignment, everything. Most of the information is over here. We have tutor page. We have, I have already mentioned in this, all these things in your welcome address, welcome mail also. We have YouTube page. So these are some of the references. Then let me thank you. Now my request to all of you is please come on the video for a group photo. Please come on the video, please.
Sir, may I know that when is the last?
Yeah, discussion will be there. Discussion will be. Let us have a photo group session.
Okay, sir.
Because let us have a group photo. Please come, please come. All are requested to come on the video. Met discussion forum.